Okay, Chair, we're live on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Good evening and welcome to East Devon District Council's LED Monitoring Forum meeting on the 11th of April 2023. I am your Chair, Councillor Sam Hawkins, and I'd like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. May I remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. Please turn any telephone devices off or to silent. In the event of a break in the internet connection, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we are not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to record. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of forum members here present.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Bickley. Councillor Dent.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor de Sawen.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Young.
Present.
Thank you. And I can confirm that we're correct, Chair.
Thank you. And then on to agenda item 1, public speaking. We've got one member of the public registered to speak, and that's a question from Hilary Davies to be read out by Debbie, please.
Thanks, Chair. Let me just switch my screen to the question. Okay, so yes, this is from Hilary Davies of Exmouth, and the question reads as follows. At the LED Monitoring Forum on the 17th of January 2023, a question was raised by a member of the public asking if LED had considered offering a discount off-peak membership for over 75s. I have questions to ask regarding the minuted response from the CEO of LED, Mr. Gilpin. Mr. Gilpin gave examples of low-income groups that were eligible for a discount, but did not mention the discounts given to working people under the corporate or blue light concessions. This discount is based on employer rather than ability to pay and will include employees at the top of these organisations on considerable salaries. The existence of this discount is unfair on members working for employers outside of this scheme and does not support the argument that support is targeted at the least well off. How is this discount justified? Mr. Gilpin also stated that it was appropriate to target support towards the least well-off rather than the over 65s indiscriminately, many of whom in East Devon are reasonably well-off. Where is the analysis of citizen data to support the assertion that the over 65s in East Devon are in this fortunate position? And what is the income threshold for a member to be considered reasonably well off? And that's the public statement from Hilary Davies of Exmouth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. We don't appear to have Peter joined our meeting at the moment. So, Richard, unless you can comment on Peter's behalf, I suggest we can only note the comment and ask for a written response to be provided in the future.
In fact, that's all I was going to say, Chair, anyway, is that we had prior notice of the question, obviously. We will look at it as part of our general pricing strategy. Certainly not going to enter into any open and discussion about what that's going to be in the future.
Thank you. On to agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of January 2023. If there are any members with any comments on the minutes, please raise your electronic hands. As I see no hands being raised, I'll take that as that everybody else consent and those minutes are agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 3, apologies. Back to you, please, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Hayward, Councillor Loudon and Councillor Rowland.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. When your name is called and mindful of the new code of conduct, please state your declaration, including which agenda your declaration relates to, stating exactly what the interest is and the specific type of interest you are declaring.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dent.
Non-registrable interest. I'm a member of LED, an active member of LED.
Thank you. Councillor de Sawen, please.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
None, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Young.
None, thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other councillors in this meeting who want to declare an interest that might affect their ability to remain in the meeting for any of the items on the agenda? If there are, please could you raise your electronic hand Thank you. Councillor Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a non-effects, non-registrable effects. I've attended some of the Exmouth Strokes events in my capacity as Mayor of Exmouth.
Thank you. Noted. And I think there are no others. So I'll hand back to you, please, Chair.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you. Agenda item 5, matters of urgency. There are 2 matters of urgency listed as items 15 and 16. And agenda item 6, confidential exempt items. And there is 1 item which officers recommend should be dealt with by this way, listed as agenda item 17. Just noting, obviously, we're getting to 17 items on tonight's agenda. Please bear that in mind with any contributions made. Agenda item 7, yes, it is a presentation from Exmouth Stroke Survivors Club. And I believe we have a 5-minute presentation by Stephen Beer, please.
Hi, good evening. I hope you can hear me, and thank you very much, Chair, for inviting me to come along. What it is, for the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I'd taken over from someone called Len, and what happened was at the stroke club, Len was getting around about 88 years old, and previously last year he died, and I've taken over. I had a few strokes myself, so I thought, well, let's give it a try and everything, and it's been really, really good. The problem is at the moment, what we're going through at the moment is that stroke survivors are being, when they get kind of like discharged from their actual discharge from hospital, there is a waiting list, and on that waiting list, there's, on that waiting list, it's going to take 18 months for them to be seen. And at our stroke club at the moment, we got people waiting to be seen. And so what we got to do is try to find what we can do to help these stroke survivors. So recently we have had ASL in, and from LED, we have had other people in who could actually kind of like help us. Also, what's happened is when we first started in the beginning, we had around about 3 or 4 members, but now we've grown up to around about 46. Trouble is with the 46, you don't see them. They're at home, so what you're doing, you're phoning them up weekly and everything, seeing if they're all right. Lately, we've been having 25 members come each week, and it's been very successful during the time over Easter. We're getting more people coming in through the door. But saying that, the trouble is now is getting equipment. We are desperate in need of some equipment, like kind of like steppers and equipment when they squeeze the board and everything. LED, can I say to the chairman and everybody here that thank you very much so far for all your wonderful help, because it's helping every single one of them. Also, what I want to tell you is that recently we won an award, and that award was a shock to us, but we've done a good job, and everyone in Exmouth seems to support us. Just recently we have bombarded councillors to come to our meetings to find out what we do at our meetings, and some of the councillors probably thinking, well, can you just kind of like leave me alone? But I will not leave you alone, because I want you to come around and find out what's happening at the stroke club, because we need help, we need your support. And we had Simon Jubb come before Christmas, and he's landed out his support and everything. So what I'm trying to ask you today is this, that yes, there's a lot of groups out there who need help, but also don't forget, just this year, we're only in April so far, and we have, there's around about 500 people alone in Exmouth. It's been kind of like discharged from hospital with stroke symptoms, and we need to help them. And what's happened is they've left hospital, and they're waiting on waiting list, and 18 months is a long time to find somebody. But can I just say, thank you very much, every one of you, for supporting us, because without you, we won't be doing today. We've got very successful stroke club in Exmouth, and we're doing really, really well. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
No, thank you, Stephen, for sharing with us obviously the work that's being done. I hear you that obviously there's bits to improve, I guess it's fair to say. I don't know if any observations or any councillors want to make any comments. I see Councillor Hookway has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, the stroke club meet at the Bidmead Centre, which is in Littleham Ward, my ward, and I have been fairly regularly in the last year or so up to see Stephen and the club and meet the members. They do a fantastic job. Steve does a really good job in organising them. If you've ever got the chance to go and see them, a club meets on Wednesday mornings, do take that chance. You will see a group of people who, despite really very challenging disabilities, are doing their best, and they absolutely do need help. I was very happy to negotiate between the stroke club and LED, and we managed to get Hazel up there and helping them out, and they also now go down to the Exmouth Leisure Centre and enjoy the pool, which is great. I was able to meet a member of the Stroke Association up there at the time, and there are certainly links there to the numbers of people who are having strokes, which I understand is increasing at the present time, which is a very big concern. So I think we ought to try to do as much as we can. I do support that call. We are doing something. It's at perhaps a small level, and anything that we can do and anything LED that can do more further to help these people should be encouraged. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Saran, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I echo my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Hookway's very positive views that he put forward, and I'm hopefully that the club can continue to survive and do great things for the community that it's currently working. Like Councillor Hookway and the Mayor, I too have attended many of their events which they put on, and they've all been well attended. And I wish the group all the best. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Otherwise, it's yes. Thank you, Stephen, for your time and coming to share with us today the work that's being done. And now we should be moving on to agenda item 8 with Peter from LED, but he's not with us at the moment. So what I think we will do, unless anybody can update me otherwise, is maybe we put Charlie on the spot and jump straight to agenda item 13, just to allow time for Peter to join if that's coming up, rather than needing to cycle back. So, with apologies to Charlie, do you want to lead in on agenda item 13, the update on the leisure strategy delivery plan, please?
Delighted to, Chair. Happy to get this one out of the way and move on to the chunkier items on the agenda. Okay, so it's about 8 months now, I think, since the strategy was adopted, and I'm pleased to say good progress is being made, Chair, and members of the forum, on a number of priority 1 and 2 areas. So rather than go through each key action one by one, I'd just like to highlight the main ones, if you're happy with that, Chair. Okay, so if you can just cast your eyes over the spreadsheet, key action 1E, please say there's been a very successful transition of the gym and class-based activities from Axvale School to Cloakham Lawn and the new hangar gym facility this year. This has come about because of the rather stringent safeguarding restrictions that are being put in place at Axvale School, and the hangar gym facility is able to provide a daytime facility for local residents and LED members during the day, as well as classes. So that's helped to overcome that specific issue. And moving on to key action 1H, really pleased with the progress, and a shame that Peter hasn't tuned in yet, Chair. Really good progress being made with the renegotiation of our dual use agreements with schools. As you're aware, there's some fairly intensive discussions going on with Colleton Grammar School over the summer, and agreements being reached there with the new arrangements with the maintenance of facilities. I understand that there's some just some final sort of legal work that needs to be required to get that one over the line, but Peter has initiated conversations with all the other schools that are within East Devon to start the process. This is really, really important because we've identified potential fairly significant savings that can be made from our capital programme with the swap of the 60-40, 40-60 arrangements, and then a wider discussion about who takes on the longer term sort of maintenance of those facilities, be it the school or our property service, which Tim Child and Georgia are involved with currently. So that's a significant piece of work that we identified as an early priority for us. So that's a positive move. And as those negotiations continue, we will need to identify some legal support to help with the whole redoing of the arrangements. So that's coming through. Key action 2A, we've just literally agreed a 3-year leisure outreach programme with LED, which is being funded through the Shared Prosperity Fund. And that will help to deliver a range of physical activities and events across the whole of the district. So again, a very exciting programme to look forward to, which we'll report back through the forum chair as a standing item as progress is being made. And on key action 5A, Simon and I have now started to discuss the management framework for 2024-25 with Peter and Karen. And this is likely to include ongoing discussions about the energy costs, dual use sites, general savings across LEDs, operations and support costs. And as I said, we started a 6-weekly meeting with Peter and Karen just to sort of get into the more granular detail of the finances of LED to help us from officers at EDC to better understand where we can make those savings and bring forward a proposal to the LED Forum for a renegotiated management fee for 24-25. I don't know if Simon wants to add anything specific to that last point. If not, Peter, I know you sort of joined. Peter, I don't want to sort of put you on the spot, but if there's something you want to say particularly about the dual use sites, which may be of interest to a number of the forum members, that would be quite useful to update.
Thank you, Charlie. Firstly, apologies, I'm late in to storm here and I seem to have lost internet connection for a while, but in okay now. Yeah, so just catching up, sorry, I have met with all of the schools and gone through the approach that we've had with Colleton, and everybody understands the reasoning behind it, which is good. Slightly different approaches depending on the various schools. For those who don't know, the Sidmouth Academy, the Sidmouth School and Honiton School are joining the Ted Ragg Academy, Multi-Academy Trust in Exeter, which also has the school in Cranbrook. So they're joining a Multi-Academy Trust, as are Axminster, who have already. Those three have joined trust. The Axminster one has joined the Ufcombe Multi-Academy Trust. And when you're talking, as I have been, to the finance directors of Multi-Academy Trusts who've got up to 15 schools, the advantage of taking on the maintenance of a sports hall and squash courts from the council is very clear. Otherwise, what you've got is a situation where they're trying to run 15 facilities, big school facilities, and in their eyes being told what has to be done to their sports halls and squash courts in what timescale, and those timescales don't fit with their budgeting. So so it's quite advantageous for the multi-sites to want to take on the maintenance. and in return they're happy to discuss adjusting that that proportion of costs in favour of the council, which is good. So so they're quite positive. I think also what's happening, we are seeing what we anticipated in that Ofsted are coming in and requiring much stronger safeguarding requirements. So as in Axminster, the Axvale Academy, as we anticipated when we were looking at moving our health and fitness out, Ofsted have asked for the school sports hall and squash courts to be, the facilities to be isolated during the day. So we would have lost all of our health and fitness activities during the day. So because Ofsted are requiring that, the school are quite amenable to moving very quickly with the Axminster site and re-agreeing the lease and the management agreement again in favour of the council. So those multi-sites are quite amenable. The two single site schools in Ottery and the Kings in Ottery and Broadclyst, being single sites, the advantage to them is not as clear. So I don't think those will go through quite as quickly, but I do think it's going to be quite possible to get those other three schools in the multi-site academies to an agreement within this financial year. That's it.
Thank you. No, I think it's important, isn't it, to reiterate that bottoming out this dual use thing is vital going forward. Obviously, we've got a lot of capital expenditure tied up in here that has serious consequences for other areas, and there's, put it bluntly, there's better things the council can be spending its limited resources on than propping up schools which the government should be funding appropriately. I think, Charlie, I think you told me that this is going to be a standing item, the whole report, the action plan on the forum going forward, which is, I think, very important. Obviously, it can help show how things are progressing, and we've got obviously the RAG monitoring, so you can get a quick and simple way of looking at it, and it's quite a good thing to just pull it all together. I think to see where we're going, what progress is being made. Obviously, there's a lot of priorities there, and they're not all going to be fixed overnight. But it's good actually to see the first time this come to the forum, we've already got a green and quite a few yellows. So there's stuff working its way through the system, which is great to see. And thank you for your work on that. It's much appreciated. Councillor de Saran, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Charlie. That was a very good report. I just wanted to quickly ask about the not started items areas. Is that something that the council is going to, or the forum is going to look at, or you're going to deal with and make some inroads into that? As clearly, it would be nice to have the report showing a lot of sort of in progress information rather than not started. So just quickly ask you to, I'm sure you've got it in hand, Charlie, but I just thought I'd ask that quick question. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, Bruce. No, absolutely. There are a number of, if you look at the first two, 1A and 1B, those are simply down to Tim and his team to identify the resources to be able to move those forward. So often there are just resource stroke capacity issues, Bruce, that are limiting progress. Because at the moment, obviously LED are taking up a big shift with a number of these actions that have been identified, and Simon and I are looking at a number of the other sort of actions. So, you know, it's a case of picking them off one by one in a sequential way and prioritising them. That's why we prioritise them 1, 2, and 3. So, you know, it's a case of, you know, I hope, you know, the forum will be patient and understanding that there is those sort of capacity issues, but being a 10-year strategy as well, I hope it's fair to say that we've got, you know, time to progress a number of these as well. But yeah, I mean, resources as always, Bruce, is one of the key issues. So I think Tim will certainly be bringing certainly 1A and 1B to Simon's attention with the budget setting for next year and the forum, and discuss how we can identify and unlock resources to make those happen.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks.
Thank you. That's an item for us to note, and I can see no further hands. So we'll cycle back now to the beginning of the agenda. So we've gone to agenda item 8, which is the LED facilities and activities update. Peter, it's over to you, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Fairly comprehensive report. So I'm hoping people have had an opportunity to read it, and probably I'll just take any questions.
Thank you. I just want to check page 4. We've got a lot of this image cannot be displayed. I take it that was just sort of sample photos of activities. We're not missing any data there. Page 11 of the agenda.
Just photographs of various activities and individuals. I don't know why they've not uploaded. So yes, that's what they are.
No, that's great. Thank you. Councillor De Saran, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, how successful, Peter, has this retention calls been? You talked about 4389 calls were answered, and you talked about what areas you've covered. I just wanted to ask how successful retention areas, and also what is this automated email journey? Could you sort of discuss it in a bit more detail as to how that might benefit LED? So those are a quick couple of questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of the membership and retention, I'm pleased to say that we actually started 1st of April this financial year with more members than we'd anticipated. So we're already off to a better start in terms of our membership numbers. We're about 200 plus members more than we anticipated. So that's a good start. We haven't yet seen any dramatic effects of the cost of living. Obviously, we're watching this very carefully as bills are coming in to households in terms of mortgages and gas and electricity bills. But my biggest fear was that we would see a bigger fall off, which hasn't come to pass. So that's good news. We are working hard on our membership retention and interaction, and that's what that automated email system is. So what the industry tells us and has done for a number of years is that the crucial period for a member joining is the first 13 weeks. And what you need to try to do is get a member engaged in their health and fitness program and their wellness program within those first 13 weeks and to get them into a routine. If they don't get into a routine, they often fall away. So what we've got with an automated system now is reminders. So at 4 weeks, at 8 weeks, at 12 weeks, they get an automated email saying, I hope you're enjoying your journey, hope you're enjoying your membership. If you haven't yet had your follow-up from the induction, please contact us. And then again, later on, if you haven't had your follow-up, please contact us. And obviously what we've also got is a team now based in a couple of hubs. So effectively a couple of small call centers. And we've consolidated that interaction with members into a couple of small call centers. So we're also chasing people as well very pleasantly to see if there's anything we can do for them. So that's what we've got now is more of an automated system, and it's tracking the people who haven't fully engaged in their membership program, which is what we want to see, which is to see them do 2 or 3 interactions with us in our gym staff, particularly the new starters and the ones who are less experienced in the gym. We obviously get a lot of people join who are very experienced gym users. They don't need to do that. They'll just go straight in and work out and get a program. But it is those newer ones who, and perhaps the more slightly at risk age groups. So we're working a lot with those in the rehab groups, in the referrals from GPs, in the older demographic, and they're the ones who perhaps haven't got the confidence, who need that follow up and need that interaction. So that's what that's intended to do, and it seems to be helping with the joining journey and the retention.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dent, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to say a couple of things. One is that I'm impressed, particularly because you may know I go to studio cycling classes, and they are getting busier and busier as we go along. Yesterday, I went back at 10:15, and I think out of 23 slots, there can only be 5 that were free. And considering it's a bank holiday Monday, I think that's absolutely brilliant. Secondly, I feel the staff who pick up the phone and speak to us are brilliant. There have been a couple of occasions when a class I've been attending has had a sick instructor that couldn't turn up, and I've on each occasion had a phone call, admittedly at the last minute, because it often happens that way, advising me to the court that that's what's happening. The only snag with that is, on one of those occasions, I also got a strike for not turning up, which I thought was hilarious. But good service, excellent instructors, increasing popularity of the classes from the viewpoint of studio cycling. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to hear that you're using real people rather than computers to chase people up. I'm just wondering if you can expand on that a little bit and what successes we're getting. And you mentioned you've got 2 hubs. Are these local hubs? Thank you.
Yes, so what we've tried to do is to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you'll pardon the expression. So to take the pressure away from receptionists, particularly at the busy centres, Exmouth, for example, where we often can have queues if we're not careful. So rather than receptions now answering the phone to inquiries, all of our telephone inquiries diverted to 2 of the centres. So we've got 3 ladies working. I was in Exmouth Tennis Centre today, and there's 3 ladies in an office there taking calls, dealing with emails, and 2 over at Honiton in the leisure centre there. So we have a team of 5 working pretty much sort of 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. And they deal with the telephone calls, they deal with the emails, and it means we don't have to deal with them at reception. And also they're fully trained to know what all of the sites are doing. So they've got the programs in front of them. Today, for example, when I was in the tennis centre, they were answering calls about the pool program in Sidmouth. So that's what we're trying to do, is to take the pressure off receptionists, and also it's a bit of a legacy from COVID that we reduced the number of staff on reception in some sites, unfortunately some through redundancy, and then what we've done is consolidate some of those losses into a smaller team working out of those 2 sites, dealing with all the inquiries.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to firstly congratulate Peter and his team on these energy reductions that they're doing and the publicity that they've gained over the last couple of weeks. Well done on that. Is that going to be long term, or is this just short term system that you're using? Forgive me if I don't quite understand it very well at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's hopefully a long-term solution. We were quick to put our hands up to offer to pilot this technology. And because we were quick to put our hands up, we got in first. And what it is, for those who haven't seen it, we did get coverage on the national news, ITN National News, and the BBC National News, as well as the evening, the regional programmes. And so what we have is computer servers in something the size of a chest freezer, immersed in oil, and then inert oil, and that is heated up to 60 degrees by the servers. That is then pumped around to our pool plant and interchanged through a heat exchanger to heat the pool water. And it just so happened that we were going to do a local regional broadcast on the Tuesday, the day before the budget. And the Chancellor was going to announce a £63 million support package for swimming pools. And BBC picked up on the fact that we had a energy technology broadcast about to go out locally and sent the national team down. That went on the Radio 4 News in the morning, and that got ITN and a few others interested. So we did get an awful lot of coverage, which was great. And this technology is in there now permanently. And I can't tell you how effective it is yet. The boffin who invented it says it could reduce our pool reliance on boiler heating by about 40 to 60%. I think that's a bit ambitious, but even if it reduced our costs by 20 to 30%, which I think is more realistic, what I told them on the TV was that our bill last year had gone up from £20,000 a year at Exmouth Leisure Centre to £80,000 a year. It had quadrupled in terms of our energy costs. So if it can, it's coming down again, but if it can save us 30% of that, we're talking about savings of tens of maybe £15,000, which will be quite significant. And then later on, obviously, we're going to talk about the possibility of under another agenda item about other technologies that we could look at for longer term investments, such as air source heat pumps. But at the moment, it seems to be working well, and I guess it'll take 2 or 3 months at least before we know how effective it is. But it was good. It was good timing, and obviously even got a mention in the budget on the Wednesday in Parliament.
No, that was really good work. I remember I was reading the BBC News that morning, National, and saw it there and was all ready to send an email going, oh, I've seen this local leisure centre's doing this. Is this something we could do too? Before realising where it was located, and thought best of sending that email. But no, it'd be great if actually you could report back when we know some figures around what kind of saving and result that's getting. That'd be wonderful to know, because obviously the way the internet's moving, there's going to be data centres and the like popping up left, right and centre, and I'm sure we'd be more than happy to host some if we can harness the heat and probably take a reasonable rent for doing so. So no, it's some good work there, and that's going to really help hopefully mitigate some of the energy costs that are faced elsewhere. So then we'll move on to agenda item 9. It's the LED community engagement report. Back to you, please, Peter.
Again, the report's been circulated, and I think our community engagement team, our outreach team, do a great job. I think which was picked up, in the leisure strategy and the report. And the good news is that we've also received from via yourselves £38,000 a year for 3 years to boost our community engagement work through the social priority fund, shared prosperity fund. Sorry. And it is targeted at trying to get new people into the leisure centres. So it can start in the community, and then we can push and divert, signpost people to the leisure centres. And there's also a lot of activities in the leisure centres as well, which that funding will go towards. So our community engagement team are thriving and very excited about the additional funding, and looking forward to putting some new initiatives into place, getting out and doing more community work. And you can see from this report the sort of work they are doing, which I think is great.
Great, thank you. I was just thinking, we've had in the past, and it might be that it's just not due yet, where you did the social value benefit effectively from this work to show the significant return on investment, because I'm just aware that there is one. And I don't know, is that an exercise that gets repeated annually, or is that a longer window?
It's a report you have to pay for. The last one we had done was fortuitous timing, really. We did it in 2019, and we looked at the calendar year 2019, and that was our best year on record. And then, of course, in 2020 we went into lockdown and pandemic. So if we'd done anything like this in the last 2 or 3 years, it would have been a very mixed bag. But what it showed in 2019 was that for every £1 spent on leisure, we were returning £8 in terms of social value. So that was an £8 million social value, predominantly in terms of health savings. So things like the GP referrals, the cancer referrals, things like that were getting the coaches, the health coaches who we were, if you remember, we initiated the first health coach a few years ago, and as a result of that, in our partnership with the NHS and the RD&E hospital, we've now got 5 or 6 health coaches working around the district. They've changed slightly in that they're focusing more on mental health now than physical health, but all of those sort of initiatives have reduced the workload on GPs, which is obviously very welcome at this moment in time. So quite a lot of the savings were considered to be from the NHS. There was also some savings from reducing antisocial behaviour and crime and things like that. So in answer to your question, Chair, we would need to pay for another report. I think we probably ought to wait until next year, or maybe look at this financial year in full at the end of the year, because I think we're only just now starting to get back to the levels we were pre-COVID. But again, I think it is something that we should do again, an update. But as I say, either towards the end of this financial year or for in the next 12 months.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, it wasn't a suggestion that one needs doing anytime soon. It's just to get an understanding of where it sits in the process. Actually, I think it is something that will be worth revisiting at an appropriate juncture, whatever that determines to be. Councillor Dent, please.
Sorry to keep popping up. Yeah, thank you, Peter. Just thinking of Exmouth for the moment. I see you've opened a cafe bar facility, little at the bottom of the stairs there, which is very popular. Every time I go in, there are more and more people sitting around having a cup of coffee, a cold drink, or a piece of cake, just to put the weight back on, of course. Does this mean that the proposals we were talking about some time ago to take over the Great Western Railway facility next door are now ditched? Is that what's happening? Cheers.
I've taken a view that that's probably likely. I think you probably need to talk to Tim Child and Property Services and others, and Simon Davey, about what funding is available. But we were having positive conversations with them pre-COVID, and then I think post-COVID, the funding to develop that site, which was part of, again, an Exmouth master plan, which it may also be. You might have a better idea than me about where we are with the Exmouth master plan, but I think it's unlikely there's any funding available for it at the moment, which is why we've pressed ahead and put a sort of what I would call a pop-up cafe in, which is doing very well. I'm really pleased with it. So we did need to do something, and we've done that, even if it's an interim thing for a few years, and we'll revisit the long-term future of the GWR building, I'm sure, in due course.
It's a good initiative. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. No more hands, so I'll then take the opportunity to move on to agenda item 10, the KPI dashboard. It's a one-pager we often get, so I'm assuming there's no need for an introduction. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my one question, Peter, the NPS score for Osprey Leisure is showing as -100. Is that just a sort of one outlier that's thrown the stats because they're just stats, or is there a particular issue that's worth commenting on?
Yeah, it's just the weird way this NPS system works. So if I look at it, sometimes it's no news is good news, because what people tend to want to do is complain rather than compliment. But we do get an awful lot of compliments, as you can see from some of our reports. But yeah, it only takes a centre to have a quiet month and have one person say something negative, and you've got 100% negative score, which is not counterbalanced by any positive comments. And I think that's quite simply what happened there. So you can see there's a couple of centres with actually 0 comments, either compliments or criticisms. But generally, we are getting the vast majority of the comments we get are very positive, and they're random sampled by email. It's not generated by us, so we don't know who they are. And the NPS company sample our database and get a random response.
Thank you. And then the total attendees across the 4 different identified sport groups, they're all down. My naive view, that's because it's January was the month we're comparing about, and everybody has a New Year's resolution to go to the gym in January. Is that the fair observation?
That's exactly it. So January is the peak, September is a peak, and after the January peak, if you remember, we also had some dodgy weather in February, which didn't help. It went very cold, so the weather put people off as well. So yes, there's always a dip in February after a bounce in January, and we should see those numbers start to recover again now after Easter, particularly in the pools. So again, there's fitness mixed in with swimming, and they have very different seasons as well. So but the trend is upwards, and that's the most important thing. I think attendance's trend is upwards, as you see top right there. So again, you can see a big dip in December. Again, the weather wasn't great, so a lot of things drop off in December pre-Christmas, and then go mad in January, and then start to get back to what is probably a normal point in February. If you look at that red dotted line showing the direction of travel, it sort of finishes in February where we were in November, at about the same point. So I'm hoping now we'll see it stabilize and even start creeping up a little bit.
No, yeah, the trend does look positive, so that's great. Don't see any other hands, so we'll move on then to agenda item 11, which is the option to reduce energy consumption at the swimming pools. Back with you, Peter, I think.
Yeah, so I'm not technologically expert on this, but what was quite interesting, if I could just summarize, and then perhaps I hand over to Tim or Charlie, what we managed to get was a couple of expert companies who were prepared to do an initial audit for us free of charge, one of which being Bosch. You'll know about who Bosch are, one of the top electrical companies. And what's quite interesting to me was that air source heat pumps are not the panacea that I perhaps thought they were instantaneously. So if you look at the bit on Sidmouth swimming pool, because new boilers were installed in Sidmouth swimming pool only a couple of years ago, they're modern and highly efficient boilers. And what Bosch determined then is you're not going to save anything, certainly not financially, by taking out brand new boilers and putting in air source heat pumps. In time, that may change. In 10, 15 years' time, when those boilers are due to be replaced, and maybe the air source heat pump technology has improved and may also be cheaper, is what happens obviously generally with technology, then it might be worthwhile reducing or heating the pool through air source heat pumps. The other thing I've learned from this is that if you look at Exmouth Leisure Centre, you could put air source heat pumps in and start to, and they would supplement, in fact, the deep green one would complement the air source heat pumps. You could use air source heat pumps to heat the pool, but again, Bosch are recommending that you keep your domestic hot water system on boilers, because you don't need air source heat pumps to do the domestic hot water. So what comes out of this report is that no pool is the same. All pools could benefit from this technology, but I think the lesson is that it will be a phased approach. So going back to that government announcement of £63 million of additional funding, 40 million of that, which we'll pick up later, I'm sure, is for what they call decarbonisation of swimming pools. So if we've got something that we could do in this next 12 to 24 months, because that's the period of time for the decarbonisation grant of 40 million, then we should be looking at putting an application in for that by July. So that might be air source heat pumps for Exmouth Pool, and they might be the only ones which have got a short-term project that we could go for funding. The others, I think what we've got to do is look at a longer term approach and probably have a 10 to 15 year, and remembering that you're looking as a council at net zero by 2040. I would suspect that what you need is some sort of timescale and program over a longer period to see when these pools are at their optimum point in time for moving from gas boilers to air source heat pumps, or for a combination of the two. And if I perhaps hand over to Tim or Charlie, what I'm aware of is that you as a council have budgeted for some consultancy support to look at this. So my view would be that we take this report which has been put together, which I think is a really helpful starting point, very comprehensive, hand it over to some consultants who can then guide you through this and come up with this timetable of technological improvements for the swimming pools, because the swimming pools are the big energy users, and they're the ones which are making the big hole in your carbon footprint. And that would be my view. But Tim, Charlie, I don't know whether you want to pick up the next steps from this report.
Yeah, if I jump in before perhaps George, because Tim's on leave.
Sorry.
That's all right. I would say one thing's just to sort of counteract what Pete said, and I agree that sort of 10, 15 year strategy, that preempting agenda item 15, I think it is, on the 63 million, as Pete is fully aware, and I'm sure Tim and George are, that the money that's being made available has got to be spent within the next couple of years, this decarbonisation programme. And also we've got a tranche of money that has been launched through the England Rural Prosperity Fund, which digital leisure and cultural assets program. Again, you know, that's over a sort of 3-year period. So I think discussions will need to be had about prioritising the sites, as Peter's quite rightly identified. And I guess, I don't want to put words into George's mouth, but the consultancy work will help us to prioritise those sites and how we get, I guess, shovel-ready projects to capitalise on the funding that's being made available right now, because it'd be a shame to miss out on those capital funds are being made available by government. But huge amount of work and a relatively short time scale for some of those sites. But George may want to say a little bit more, Chair.
George, do you want to drop in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. All I wanted to say is that the next steps are precisely to engage with a consultant, okay, and basically for the consultant to put together a plan to basically decarbonize the sites. Now, it all depends how fast we're going to move with these. Of course, we have to move fast, but we are aware that there is not a one solution for everything, and each site needs to be looked at individually and then find the best solution for that site. I absolutely agree with Peter that we should be looking at the swimming pools in the first instance, because those are the most energy hungry sites that we have, and that's the plan that we are planning to basically go forward with. Basically, we are working in 2 stages. Okay, the first stage would be engage a consultant. The consultant comes up with detailed plans how to basically decarbonize those buildings, whether it is replacing boilers with more efficient boilers, or whether it is using air heat pumps, or whether it is solar panels, whatever it is, the consultant would come up with the detailed plans, and then we use those detailed plans to secure the funding for the works that need doing. So that is the plan. We need to move quickly. There is funding that becomes available and basically disappears because it's oversubscribed. Last year there was a funding for basically appointing consultants, and that opened on the day, and it closed on the day as well because it was oversubscribed. So it is very competitive. Lots of people want to get hold of these funding, so we really need to move really fast with these opportunities as when they come on. Locally, we have some funding already approved in the capital program last year to appoint a consultant to precisely look into what we could do in the business. We haven't got much allocated against that. We only have £50,000, but that would make us a start, at least with the swimming pools, okay? And then we could move after that into basically identifying the actual budget to carrying out the works on site. So that's really the plan, okay? Is early stages, okay? But obviously the work that that LED did in identifying what was feasible in those swimming pool sites is a very good start, and we will pick up that up and then just go from there. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I can see John's got his hand up as well.
Thank you, Chair. Great to see this on the agenda and kicking off the kind of conversation that we really need to have in terms of reaching net zero. I don't disagree with anything in the report or that's been said so far. We have tapped into some expert consultancy that could possibly cover this area with regards to our council membership of the Southwest Energy and Environment Group. So the experts at Exeter University were a member of that group, and I'm sure they'll be interested in working with us on this project. We've also had a conversation with a company at the Science Park, based at the Science Park, that are doing some work for us in housing, and they have a product that Tim's been made aware of that they've applied to reduce or improve the energy efficiency in swimming pools. Certainly in Cheltenham, I know they've used it. So again, we can explore that and bring all these elements together to really reduce or decarbonise our facilities, and I think the pools are the place to start. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Thank you, officers, for all the reports so far. Yes, on this one, Peter, I'd just like to say I'm really pleased to see in this report, and indeed on 15 as well, that there's been some really welcome thought gone into the predicament of the flamingo pool in Axminster. And I just wonder if you can, or you or Charlie or whatever, give us a few words on how, you know, through conversations and whatever, and perhaps this initial bit of work around Bosch and whatever, we've been trying to help with their predicaments as well.
Yeah, perhaps if I pick this up to start with, Charlie. LED has engaged with Flamingo Pool. We've developed quite a good relationship with them. They've had a change of chair and treasurer and so on, and that's been a welcome change because they're much more prepared to engage. I think they're in a situation where they have to really to survive and find and look at what they need to do. So we have had a good engagement and conversation with them, and we have included them in that initial audit on the basis that we'll give them free advice up to a point in time. And I think our intention, Charlie, is to incorporate them into the consultancy work on the basis that they'll pay for well, it's yet to be agreed, but I think on the basis that they'll pay a proportion of the cost of the consultancy, and then obviously it'll be up to them to determine whether or not they can afford to go ahead with any of the technological recommendations. I think what did come out of that report is that their pool plant and their technology is very outdated. You'll be pleased to know that the consultants were very complimentary about our pool plant rooms and that they were well invested in and well maintained, but Flamingo Pool hasn't been. So I think the other thing, Charlie, we'll be pointing them towards funding. If not from the council, there are grants out there, and obviously they ought to be applying for this, some of this government funding as well. So we'll be helping them, councillor, all along the way, but there's certainly no money in LED to pay for any of their improvements, but we will be trying to help them to recognise what it is they need to do, and I'm sure they'll be coming to you as a council to talk to you about support as well.
Yeah,
yeah, Councillor Arnott, do you want to come back?
Oh,
sorry,
no.
Charlie.
Yeah,
I was just going to add, yeah, just I've been in touch with various members of the committee there at Flamingo Pool and made them aware of the opportunities, and they've been very clear that getting in a new heating system is an absolute game changer for them, you know, to deal with their financial issues, and so they are very much, you know, part of our thinking, Paul. So you know, we want to assist and help them as much as we possibly can. It's in our interest to do that, as well as obviously you know, all the residents you know, of Axminster and around, because as you know, it's a much used and loved facility.
Yeah, Councillor Arnott.
Thanks, Charlie and Peter, very much for that, and thank you, Chair, for letting me come back in. So it was interesting reading the report, and as you were saying, Peter, the air source heat pumps aren't necessarily the panacea, and we found this at the Reece Strawberries Youth Centre that I'm chairing Colleton as well, that real swings and roundabouts sometimes, and yes, it can help you get off fossil fuels, which is going to be important, is going to be important, but also sometimes they don't work very well. And in the case of Axminster, if I've read the report correctly, there is a problem finding, I think, probably external wall space to actually mount them as well. So it needs a lot of thought. Can I just, through you, Chair, just check one other question as well before I just want to say something quickly, which is, have we been approached by the charity, by the Flamingo Pool charity last year? Did they ask us for sort of, you know, cash support of some kind? I don't know if I can ask Simon that maybe. because I have no memory of it myself.
I can see some cogs
Through-
twirling.
It's all gone quiet. So through you, Chair, Charlie's probably better to answer without trying to slope his shoulders, but I don't recall an actual request regarding cash. I think we picked up through COVID and all sorts in terms of their financial issues, and discussions certainly came about, I think, through Charlie, but certainly through Peter. So I don't believe we've actually had a request for direct cash support.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, Chair. What they've wanted help with is how or what other appropriate funds they can access to help deal with their specific issues, and that's why we've been in correspondence with them to do with the England Rural Prosperity Fund. I think, I can't remember. That's the capital program that's part of the shared prosperity funding sort of family that's sort of come through, and we've identified that as a possible mechanism, and those are sort of big discussions, but really just to help provide advice and support, and that they weren't forgotten, Paul, I think, so they know that we're alongside them and wanting to help them, you know, unlock that funding.
Councillor Arnott.
Yes, finally, Chair, I feel like Perry Mason grinding his way to an appalling final sentence. You can see where this is going to be coming from, can't you? Well, I'm really very pleased to get all that information. It was my understanding as well. And I'm delighted that as a council, we are going to help with Flamingo as much as we're able to in terms of advice and looking to the future. Chair, unfortunately, Councillor Hall has put a public statement out. And he's saying when it was asked in 2022 that Axminster swimming pool was in need of being financially supported equally, as is the case for other towns within East Devon, the independent administration said they could not afford to. So I thought I'd just read that out for you, Chair, for your interest, and I think that what we just heard proves that that's completely untrue. And if Councillor Dent and Councillor Desarin might put a call into Councillor Hall later, I think the public in Axminster would be very grateful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm sure that's been appropriately noted by appropriate persons. Councillor Hookway, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Right, yeah, going back to the matter in hand, I'm very grateful that officers have produced this report, and a couple of Pete as well, because it does show what a complex business going towards carbon neutral is going to be with pools and so on, and how it's different for each site. I'm wondering whether we ought to actually put forward some recommendations regarding this report, Chair. Clearly we're going to note it, but do we wish to think about stating that we want consultants to be engaged as quick as possible to provide us further with further information to make a long-term decision? I'd be grateful for advice on that point. I understand, I realise there's a lot of work going on, but do we as a council need to put that down as a recommendation?
Thank you. I'm going to just ask for a bit of guidance on around practicalities. I'm just aware that obviously there'll be a recommendation to Cabinet, and I don't know whose Cabinet, so to speak, how that would progress, whether that even matters. No one seems to think it matters, so I'll take that as it's okay. In that basis, then, is there anybody that wants to second that?
Yeah, for the sports, Chair, absolutely, I happily second that.
Excellent, thank you. Sarah, are you happy that you've got adequate, appropriate wording? Right.
Actually, could Councillor Hookway please repeat it so that I can just capture that for the minutes?
Well, we've been, the recommendation is that that consultants be appointed to advise council and LED about the most appropriate way of moving forward for achieving carbon neutral swimming pools and leisure centres.
Thank you. That'll obviously be a will that go as ultimately a report to cabinet? I'm just thinking also it would need, I'm assuming, Simon, you'd want financial comment in that in the appropriate spot in due course.
Well, yes, that's part of one of the reasons why I'm trying to put it forward, because we know there's some money available, but it may well be that cabinet may wish to allocate further funding based upon Simon's comments, obviously. But I just want to, we've got the ball rolling. I'm not trying to force it. I want to stress that. What I want to do is for us to make an informed and correct decision for each of those leisure centres. We've clearly got that in hand. Let's regularise that by a recommendation to cabinet.
Excellent. No, I think that's a great summary actually of where it is, and obviously it keeps that moving forward. And on the basis I can't see any other hands, I'm happy to just take that straight to a vote using ticks and crosses, please.
Okay, so Chair, we have 5 green ticks in favour.
Lovely, that's great. Thanks a lot, and thank you everybody for that one. Agenda item 12 is an update or an overview of LED's trading subsidiary, and we are back to you, please, Peter.
Yeah, I was just asked to produce this because in conversation with officers and yourself as well, Sam, that I'm not sure how understood our trading subsidiary relationship was. So Councillor Dent, for example, just now was talking about our new cafe in the leisure centre. So all of our food and beverage and hospitality income is not charitable and can't go through the charity. So we have to have a trading subsidiary now to deal with that. And I just thought it would be useful, as a couple of officers suggested, that I write a report to explain it. So members and obviously the public as well are aware that our trading subsidiary exists purely to do 2 things. One is to deal with all of our non-charitable turnover and income, which is food and beverage mainly, and the soft play at Ocean, because that's not charitable, and that all of the surplus from those activities is then gift aided up to the parent charity of LED, which is charitable, and therefore helps to offset the costs of the respective facilities and the leisure management contract.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on that? I think it's a fairly concise report summarising the position. As I don't see any questions, Councillor Hookway.
Yes, just very quickly, just to thank Peter for this report, because people have asked me in the past exactly what is the relationship between LED and LED Enterprises, and this now will be an excellent document to refer people to. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Then we will jump over to agenda item 14, which is the update on East End District Council's playing pitch strategy, and that's by Matt Dickens. Please.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me. So hopefully the report before you is self-explanatory. If I can just pick out a couple of key themes going through it. So it is very much a strategy about outdoor sports. So I've flagged up the 5 key sports that, as drafted at present, it applies to. It's very much following a methodology that's defined by Sport England, that's been built up with sport governing bodies. So the sport governing bodies, Sport England, are key to the overall work. You'll see that there are 5 stages set out in the playing pitch strategy, the process we go through. That they're on the 2nd page of the report. So quite methodical in nature, but by going through these stages, hopefully we are going to be ticking off the relevant boxes and issues and concerns to get a robust playing pitch strategy in place. Stages A and B are largely complete. So a lot of work's gone into background information gathering and background assessment. And that's really now with the sports governing bodies to dissect and pull apart and reconstruct as appropriate. What we move to are core themes coming through the strategy. So really looking at playing fields, they're about protection, enhancement and provision of new. So protection is about essentially not losing what we've already got. You'll be aware that many sports pitches over the years have been lost up and down the country. enhancement is very much about how do we get better use out of the pitches we've got. So what sort of management regimes or other regimes are required to enhance the quality of pitches and their use. And the provide component is very much about how, where, when do we seek to secure, provide new pitches, and how do we achieve that? So these are three kind of core themes that come through the Sport England methodology that we're applying. And I think the final point to stress in respect to the strategy, that the intent is to get as wide a ranging ownership as possible. So it is clearly an East Devon District Council document, but it really does need to be bought into and agreed by a wide range of partners, specifically the sports governing bodies and the clubs and teams that they are responsible for, they support, that are part of their makeup. So that's really where we're at on the PPS. The aspiration is to get it finished in the summer of this year, and then to carry forward implementation, relevance to local plan work, and potentially wider corporate activities of the council and our other partners. So that's a quick gallivant through where we're at on the playing pitch strategy.
Excellent, and thank you for the overview. Any members got any comments or questions, please? Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, just very quickly, just looking at the last page, really, about the ownership of the playing field strategy, playing pitch strategy. Excuse me. So it says we will also take the PPS to committee of East Devon District Council for formal endorsement or approval. And I don't know if this has been thought through yet from the democratic side, Matt. So if you don't know the answer, please don't worry. But I'm just wondering where and it's great to hear this is sort of up and running. I'd be interested to ask actually whether the work that was done for us by the external consultants has helped with this in some way, whose name I'm not giving you because I can't remember, because they're called literally something like sport something, aren't they? Forgive me, I can't remember. But interested to see if that was interesting, if that was of use, and also, you know, where it would come to next, if you can say at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly envisage it going to strategic planning committee because it's being done, I suppose, by the planning policy team. The options there to take it to cabinet and or council for endorsement if that's felt to be desirable. I think that the consultant work, the key bit, and I guess this is where there's an overlap with the wider leisure world, is that lots of the sports we're dealing with will train indoors, so there's a kind of an indoor and an outdoor element to them, and in respect to tennis in particular, there is an indoor component to match play, so there is overlaps there, and that's really, I guess, the key link with the leisure strategy work.
Sorry, so much to find the mute button. Councillor Arnott, you still got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. Very briefly, that's just worth considering, Chair. I don't think it's a decision we can make now. I think there's so much knowledge within this committee, and the Strategic Planning Committee is so absolutely exhausted by doing the local plan as well. I just wonder if it would be a fun idea that we could consider, you know, after May, about a meeting of the two committees, or perhaps more. It's sort of, it is planning, and I get it, and I get that Matt sits within that orbit as well, absolutely correctly. But you know, I think there's a lot of expertise on this committee. It'd be good to be there, you know, to receive that first report. It's just a thought. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Matt.
No, thank you. No, it's a good point actually. I know we've discussed previously, like we've got it here, just coming to this forum as a sort of an overview piece to see how it's been moving along so we can chip away at the edges. But whether it's actually one for a joint meeting at some point to just have a look again, or otherwise you kind of just bouncing it around on a consultation basis, either or really, it probably achieves the same purpose. But if you have one joint meeting, maybe it achieves it a bit quicker and a bit more fluid. Councillor Huckway, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Following on from that, sport does come under my portfolio. I can't sit on strategic planning, being a cabinet member, so I would absolutely welcome a discussion or a move to have this a particular strategy discussed within this forum. That would make much more sense from my perspective anyway. Thank you.
A point of information, Chair, if I may,
You may.
Honouring Councillor Allen's absence. No, Councillor Hookway may sit on strategic planning, but he may not sit on planning. Neither may he sit on scrutiny or audit and governance.
Okay.
But, yeah,
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I stand corrected, Chair. Leader.
No worries. Thank you. I think I'm leaning towards maybe it comes to the forum when it's in a near final position, just to add a bit of comment on, or where it felt appropriate. Just thinking how other reports sometimes go to committees just before they go to the committee where they finally live. It would be good to have a bit of just oversight. So that's something can be noted for a future meeting. And I think that would be much appreciated when it's got through the system. Obviously not for this forum to approve or anything, but just to add comment where it can be helpful. I'll leave officers obviously decide the appropriate timing, where that would be the most useful juncture. Otherwise, I don't see any other hands. So, Matt, thank you for going through that and sharing that with us today. Oh, Charlie, before I wind up.
Thanks, Chair. Just quickly, it's a point actually Peter sort of picked up in the notes. I think it's a really important one, because under the action plan, action 1D makes specific reference to the artificial pitches. And they're a very important part of the leisure strategy about how we're creating, or ensuring that we continue to maintain and upgrade the existing ATPs, but also looking at additional provision such as Honiton. So there is a very strong overlap with the PPS and also with the leisure strategy, specifically in that area. So I think it's good to have that oversight, which I'm sure would help Matt as well to understand how that plays out with the delivery of the leisure strategy, but also the way the PPS is helping to contribute to the delivery of the leisure strategy as well, which I think was always, one of the aspirations of the two pieces of work. There was a slight sort of timing issue, because obviously the PPS is following in the wake of the leisure strategy, but it'd be good to sort of show members, particularly, how the connectivity between the two, and the two can mutually support each other.
Excellent, thank you. And then if we move on then to agenda item 15 is government funds to support public swimming pools. Back to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and Charlie can probably back me up on this, because we've both heard the same story from our different perspectives. I went to a Community Leisure UK meeting where the Sport England director, who's responsible for managing this £63 million, because it's going to be given by the government to Sport England to manage. She explained how she thought it was going to work, although it hasn't yet been fully signed off and explained by DCMS. And in a nutshell, in the report, what we're looking at is 63 million, 23 million of which will need to be spent in this current financial year on revenue projects. It seems highly unlikely from what she said that East Devon would qualify for anything, because it will be prioritised on socially deprived areas. And I got the hint that they were also looking for that to sort of help cover some of the levelling up areas up north. Of more interest, I think, to us was the 40 million for decarbonisation of swimming pools. That's likely to be released in July for funding applications, and will be a 2-year spending window. And that's going back to that conversation earlier this evening, that if we can get some consultants to start looking at this fairly quickly, if there was a quick win that could be eligible for us to do in the next 2 years, we ought to get something in for that one. Other than that, I think it's going to, our energy stuff is going to come, as we talked about earlier, over 10 to 15 year programme. So, and I think, Charlie, you got the same message really from the Southwest Council's meeting that you went to, that the other big message I got from Sport England was this is not going to be evenly distributed like some of the COVID funding was. There will be a bidding process, and as George talked about earlier, it's going to be very, very competitive, and there's going to be, I'm sure, some national politics at play as to where the spending goes. So, Charlie, I don't know whether that was also the message you got in your meeting.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, and also just an additional point from the Southwest meeting with all the local authorities who dialed into that one. One of the other key concerns is that drawing on that technology, there are going to be, if you think nationally, a huge amount of local authorities wanting to have engineers, all the equipment put in, and actually there's already issues in terms of accessing the infrastructure. So logistically, I think it's going to be challenging. And as Peter said, if we're able to secure some of the funding, we really need to be very clear about where we want that to go initially, and be sure that we have, the right engineers and also all the infrastructure ready to go, because there's a huge draw on that as well. And I'm pretty sure, George is finding that as well. So just be mindful of that. It's far from straightforward. However welcome the funding is, it's going to be quite challenging.
Thank you both. Just aware, obviously, we've had the chat earlier and about the moving forward, the consultant's point. Is there anything else, I guess, that we can do tonight to make sure the council's in the best possible position to grab some of the £63 million, so to speak? Or is that the consultant is the next step and therefore we are best placed? Councillor Hookway?
Well, following on from what we were saying about the leisure centres and the recommendation to appoint consultants, should we no, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head of what we should be doing. We want obviously officers and consultants to identify a potential bid and submit that with all due haste, well, necessary haste. Charlie, you got your hand up. Help me up here, please.
Yeah, Nick, I think we've got to handle the application process. We'll have to go through a procurement process as well, Sam, which obviously takes a bit of sort of time. So we'll need to think how we can expedite that, as effectively and efficiently as possible. And I think discussions have already started. George knows, with Tim, Peter, myself, and we just need to move quickly. And I think as long as the forum's aware to help us sort of pass go as quickly as possible, so to speak, to ensure we can access the funding, because I think it's going to be, it's going to be a very competitive and a pretty challenging sort of period, sort of as soon as July's announced and all systems are go.
Okay, do we then need to think about delegating authority to officers at some point?
Simon can probably answer best on that, Chair. Nick?
Thank you.
Through the Chair, I don't think it needs delegation. I think just a note, it gets full support from the forum, but I take this as just an officer's job to ensure we apply appropriately and swiftly, basically.
Right, so I recommend, Chair, that we note and support the report.
Thank you. I'll second you this time. George, I saw you had a hand up a second ago. Did you want to comment, or you've been addressed?
Well, it's been covered really. We just need the support. The time frame is really tight. If we're talking about July, we need to basically appoint a consultant within 2 weeks. That means that we will have to go through a framework. So we won't have time to do a proper tender exercise that we will normally do. But if we go through a framework, we could probably achieve having a consultant on board in, I don't know, the next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, thanks everybody for the input there. I've had a recommendation and it's been seconded. So if I can just ask members to tick and cross, please, that would be wonderful.
So we have 6 green ticks in favour, Chair.
Thank you. That then moves us on to agenda item 16, which is the property and FM team approach to capital works LED managed dual use properties. And I believe that's with you, George.
Yes, that's with me. This is a really short report. I hope that everybody had a chance to read it. It's basically our approach with regards to capital work that has already been agreed in LED managed sites with dual use. Basically, some of the projects, especially the largest one, they have been put on hold because of this pending renegotiation of the management agreements and so on, and the switching of the responsibility from 40 to 60. So what we find is, because of the way prices are going up, okay, there is really not a huge benefit to wait for the management agreement to be finalized, and we should go ahead and do this work anyway, because the more we wait, the prices go up, and by the time the prices go up, our share will be more or less the same as if we basically hold and basically don't do the work now. So we've basically put over there all our the reasons why we think that we shouldn't put any work on hold that is already been agreed, except for the cases where the actual negotiations are well in advance and basically it won't take long to agree. Okay, so that's basically the report, and we just wanted the forum to support that approach.
Thank you. I don't know if any forum members have any comments or views. I presume once obviously we get further into the nitty-gritty of negotiating the position, we can reflect if we have done work that's higher value than maybe the renegotiated position, we can factor that into the negotiations to suggest a balancing exercise at some point. But I fully take on your point that with inflation where it's at, there are very material costs in delaying that could outweigh any benefit actually achieved. On the basis I don't sort of see any comments, certainly not against the recommendations, I'll move from the chair and that we support the recommendation made, that the forum acknowledges the approach and supports it. And on that basis, can I ask members please to vote using the necessarily digital buttons?
Okay, Chair, we have 6 green ticks in favour.
Thank you. And that will bring the public part of our consultation meeting to an end. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live, and until then your comments will be live to the public. Councillor Arnott, did you want to come in just before we move session?
Yeah, I'd love to, Chair, just if I may, just to thank all the committee members, all the officers, and especially you in the chair for I think what has been a really productive committee these last few years in extremely challenging circumstances for both officers, for LED and for members. So thanks, Sam, very much for the role you played. Thank you.
No, thank you. Sorry, that is a very important reminder that we will be going to public. So again, I'd just also like to thank officers and LED actually for working with us on moving this forward. Obviously, it's effectively it was a new thing during this period. Very important that it's done. Also, there's an exposure to the council that we need to tie up. Obviously, it's been great that we've now got a leisure strategy that's current, addresses the issues the council's face, and something we can move forward and open this up to the relevant Sport England funding, as well as other areas that we can make sure that any funding achieved is directed appropriately and achieves the best possible outcome for residents where we can do so. Councillor Dent, please.
Get myself on. Yeah, as we're just moving out of this is my last meeting. I'd just like to echo what I've said on many occasions and say it again, that the importance of physical, mental and emotional health is vital. And often I say to people, the best medicine in the medicine cabinet is exercise, because that helps all 3 elements of good health. So I'd like to wish you all the best in the future. May all the things that we've been talking about come to fruition. Thank you, LED management. Thank you, officers, and thank you, fellow members. Good night.
Thank you, Councillor Dent. I think that's very well said. Councillor De Sarum.
I too, very briefly, obviously I'm not standing for re-election in a couple of weeks, so I also will be leaving the forum, but I am very proud and very proud and positive about the works achieved by the LED Forum. I believe that it's showing that it's coming back to a position of strength, as many of the reports have indicated, and I think it will have great challenges ahead for the future, but I believe that it's a very positive step that we are taking as a council. So thank you very much, Chair, and good luck to everyone involved.
Thank you. I think that's everybody for closing comments in the public arena, so to speak. Sarah, are you happy then to proceed with the